remember that when you're dealing with people, this is Dale Carnegie, Win Friends and Influence People. Remember that when you're dealing with people, you are not dealing with a rational being. You're dealing with an emotional being, and that's who we are at our essence. And I like to think of the word human being, right? We have our human side, we have our physical body, we have our, the breath is part of that, right? But the being part is this biological brilliance that when we're in that place, by intentionally practicing, and with enough practice, enough years, and enough time, like you might kind of be able to access that brilliance much more readily, or at least know when you're not in your brilliance and what to do to get back there. That's what all this, what EQ has really helped me do. IQ gets you hired, EQ gets you promoted. And it's really, I mean, it's all like collaboration, cooperation, communication. It all requires us to be present.
Welcome to the EQ for Entrepreneurs podcast. Like most business owners, you already know you need good business and marketing strategies to scale and be profitable. But at some point, you've hit the dreaded wall where you feel stuck and frustrated. EQ for Entrepreneurs is for business owners and leaders who are honest enough to admit that they just might be the ones holding their business back and are brave enough to change that.
We're Noble and Kathy, and every week we're having candid conversations about all things emotional intelligence and how growing that has allowed us to get out of our own way and is radically transforming both our businesses and our personal lives. This is the secret sauce strategy for modern entrepreneurs who are tired of hustling without seeing results and want to grow a business and a life that they love.
Man, prior to just a few years ago, I just started my EQ journey just a few years ago, and I mean, I was that guy that was walking around absolutely clueless, had no, honestly, Will, man, I had the clue bus drove by and I just waved, you know what I mean? Yeah, so I was military, and I grew up in a house where, we had zero conflict resolution. We'd yell and scream at each other, and then an hour later come back and act like nothing happened. Or like, hey, so what? I just get done cussing you out, and then an hour later, like, hey, so what's for dinner? How the White Sox doing or whatever. And so
yeah, right.
so I could have 2 PhDs in stuffing and avoiding.
Yeah, and they go a long way, stuffing and avoiding PhDs, right? They go very far.
That's right. And so this whole concept of mindfulness, man, I'm really kind of looking forward to hearing, because I think that's a humongous aspect in emotional health and emotional intelligence, and
and success. I mean, flat out, you're going to be more successful, by just being more emotionally aware, and it's like, we'll talk about it as we go through, but it's like, it's so, I mean, it's just so, I mean, it's IQ gets you hired, EQ gets you promoted, and it's really, I mean, it's all like collaboration, cooperation, communication, it all requires us to be present, so it's been awesome to work with these different companies and helping them kind of, just even like getting into emotional intelligence can be quite a challenge, just to get people to sit still and just maybe meditate or breathe or just actually exercise when, so just, it's really rewarding to be able to speak with you today and to help all the people I already have, and all continually finding ways to, to do that more effectively.
Yeah, that's great. So let's start with your story, Will. Tell me your story. How did you, from like, even if you want to even go back, even, childhood, how was your childhood, and how did your childhood contribute? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get you completely. And, you just shared about your household, and mine was kind of the same, like it was a lot of a passive aggressiveness, having a fight and then just like forgetting that we just wanted to kill each other 2-3 minutes ago, and then just moving on like nothing happened. So but I grew up an athlete, which was very rewarding for me for sure. Um, and just really rewarded for my athleticism in a lot of ways, and just like go out and like run and compete, and do great things competitively. Um, never really having knowing my creativity at all was kind of a big deal for me. Like now I discovered that later. Like I ended up being an actor at age 30. I turned an actor for like 10 years and moved to New York City, and that really had a massive effect on my life.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, what really brought me to that point was I just started journaling. It was literally, well, actually, where it started is I had a massive heartbreak. I broke up with this girl. First time I really just opened up emotionally to life. I mean, love can, I'm sure we all, it can take you in some crazy places. And when it's not there, I just really felt searching for answers. And picked up The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron and started journaling every morning, and it completely changed my life. And I am a product of that experience, and we speak today.
Wow.
So
how did I mean, I've just got 10 questions just off of what you just shared there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how did the process of journaling begin to either heal you or develop you or help you discover yourself? What was that journey like?
That's a great question. I really recommend The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. She's amazing. She's just a great writer. Helped me just really know it's okay to express myself. So these morning pages, which are a pillar in the book, she said, just get up, 3 pages, stream of thought, right? And I was in this very heartbroken kind of place. So I'm just writing, like, oh, I feel shitty and fuck, and just kept writing. And it just like stream of thought, just let it out, let it out, let it out. And after about like 3 weeks of kind of mourning this loss and trying to put some of the pieces back together with her guidance as well throughout the book, like I started to redefine like who I am, what I wanted to do. I even changed my name. Like I got to a point where I'm William, right? I grew up Bill or Billy in my household. Through this journaling, I got to a place that I was just like, I don't want to be Bill anymore. My dad's name is Bill. My grandfather's name is Bill. And I'm like, that's not who I am. And from that moment, and anytime I stepped anywhere into the creative and acting world, I was like, my name is Will Schneider. And really just kind of sticking claim to myself, who I am, where I'm going, what I want to do. So that's really helped me. Like journaling, it allows me to, kind of let go of all the emotional and mental shit that's kind of in the way. Just like they call it also like a brain dump. So I'm just taking it all like, and just like, boom, putting it in a physical space. And then it's just like, then it's no longer a part of me. Then it's like over there on the page, and I can come back to like, hey, who am I? What do I want to do? Like, and just having, that mental and emotional release. So that's like, I mean, and there's several different journaling. You can prompt yourself to journal certain questions and just really dig it in. And you, after you keep digging long enough, what I've experienced is you'll definitely start finding some answers. And might not be on a page, but there's something about a synchronicity that starts to happen when you begin to walk yourself into your dreams, even just if it's in your imagination, and all of a sudden, like someone shows up that was like, whoa, this is so serendipitous or synchronistic, because I can use what you have, or I can you're exactly what I'm looking for, kind of thing.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's like, that just started everything else. Like that just really helped me. It was a heartbreak, and then like wanting to, instead of letting it crush me and be a drug addict or something, or an alcoholic, like I got proactive, and not knowing where it was going to take me. I just knew I couldn't have this gaping hole in my heart anymore.
Wow. So it sounds like you totally took ownership, even amidst the pain and the heartbreak and everything, and really, took ownership, and we're not afraid to sit in that
Yeah.
uncomfortable space and place that you were in, but really, I mean, talk about channeling it in a positive direction. I mean, that's huge. Did you have like a process or system that you journaled by that, or was it more organic and just kind of flowed like in a flow state kind of thing, or what was that like?
No, great question. I mean, so you're encouraged by, this The Artist's Way by Julia, just to like brain dump, just write, 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 write. And, it's funny. And she even describes it in the book. I mean, like I'm having flashbacks in the book. I haven't read it in years. It's like, she kind of goes on to explain like after that, like first or second page stuff starts to pull through. But since then, sometimes I'll journal like a particular question, or like sometimes I use that time because I especially during COVID, like there's been times where when I first started, I meditated, I journaled for like 5 years straight, like, like at least 5 or 6 days a week, 20 minutes, 30 minutes a day, and just writing, right. It just became like a ritual for me because it just allowed me to just open up and express whatever the hell I wanted to express. No one reads it, like I don't even go back and read it sometimes. It's just there. But now I use it for to look back on my accomplishments and like what I have, because I'm always like I have a problem of like always moving forward and not really celebrating what I've accomplished, and knowing that those achievements have really keeps me inspired and moving forward. Um, there's just like if there's really, I would say, if there's something really that's bothering you, write that down, right? And it's something that keeps hitting you in the back of the head, like over and over and over again, whatever that is. Like it could be self-doubt stuff, it could be relationship stuff, it could be work stuff. You know, make it a question and just sit down and journal that question, and stuff will start coming out. Like you can do pros and cons of it, or just like really looking at all angles instead of it, or maybe it just like you just go at it emotionally and be like, or something, and see where that takes you. And so it's like it's been a really, yeah, it's just been a really powerful exercise. And all through COVID, I still have all my notebooks. I have stacks of notebooks that I've been writing all these years that I hope to be, as I'm continually writing or coming up with a book, like I just gonna go back and just read a lot of this stuff, because it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of information in there that is kind of filed away. So
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Man, I'm sure it's probably a gold mine of almost like your emotional DNA almost in those pages and stuff.
yeah.
Um, man, okay. So another question is like, so it seems like between the exercise of journaling and man, and I've never been an actor, but
Yeah. Oh,
like watching lots of
yeah.
movies and stuff like that. I gotta believe that the craft of acting, you
Mm,
you have to be in touch with emotions and that
yeah.
space, because
Yeah.
whoever you're portraying, you have to be good. The good actors anyway, at least from my little novice perspective, is like
Yeah.
they are able to nail that feeling or convey that emotion. And it seems like, man, journaling and your acting probably went very, very closely together.
Well, yeah, it's the whole acting side of things, and and that was for me. Like I went all in. I went all in. I changed my whole life. I was working in a corporation for 6 years. I have a degree in biology. So I really am kind of a nerd when it comes to science and math. And I was always good at it. My dad is a math teacher. Like math was easy. Science was, I mean, definitely a challenge, but I just loved learning about science. And I still do. I mean, that's one of the reasons I love what I'm doing, because it's always this fusion of science and philosophy and self. And uh, so the acting was just a step into my creativity, a step into my own life. I moved to New York City, which was kind of destined to be here, like the 17 years strong that I've been in New York, and I love it. I mean, New York City is really, the city has just changed me, because I think it also, the city or wherever anyone lives, it's like getting into the city, it demands a certain amount of emotional intelligence because of how much interaction you have with other people on a regular basis. And if you want to go out and fighting the world, you're really going to suffer in New York. But if you want to stay, you have to find a way to be a little kinder, a little more friendly, and kind of let shit go. So acting, yeah, it's all about, I mean, it requires a tremendous amount of courage to step on stage. I remember my first auditions, I was like, oh my God. But getting on the other side of that, I was like, oh my God, I could fucking do anything. Like, I got on stage, it was terrible. It was terrible, in the beginning. But at the same time, I started opening up with acting, because like, you really have to be emotionally available. You got to tap into the well, and really be fully present and fully alive. I mean, all the performances that we see on stage or movies or TV, like, I mean, we're drawn to tears or get fired up because of their channeling a character with an emotional life. That's all imaginary, but it's like, yeah. But the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and perceived reality. You can tell it anything, and it moves through and will create a response mentally and physically and emotionally. Yeah, so that's where kind of, and it was a big hustle too, like acting. I was on my own, like, no like trust fund money or anything like that. I worked hard in New York. I mean, I waited tables, I bartended, actually manied for a family sometimes, and I kept practicing or kept going to classes and rehearsals and just having a lot of fun doing it. And then there's a slow, and in that creative process, it's like, I need to go deeper. And it was 2007 that I started meditating. And that's just another, that just really, I mean, you just get deeper and deeper. It's like journaling, without a pencil in some way. Not journaling, but it's just kind of like, it's tapping in that kind of same way, but a different method.
Sure.
So, please.
How did you make that? So how did you make that transition from journaling to the acting, and then the mindfulness, like where you're at today? How it seems like a really fascinating progression of an evolution of who you are.
Yeah,
just hearing that is fascinating.
Well, I think, I feel like I'm still trying to figure out who I am in some ways, and it's like the deeper I go, the more I don't know. And I'm like, but I know what joy is and happiness and how to create those things. And, so I definitely work with that. So the acting, it was a lot of fun. I was on TV. I was on a bunch of soaps. I got on stage so much. I did some films. Like, I really, acting really helped me find my voice, find my own 2 feet, find my balls, if I can be so brat. You know what I mean? It's like, cause, and then really being bold and being courageous. I started meditating with TM in 2007. Right after that, I started actually practicing yoga. Actually, meditation came first. And like I said, I was an athlete growing up, so I was lifting weights and doing this, and it didn't really I didn't enjoy it anymore. And there's some studios here in the city that back then started to pop up, and were like, they didn't seem like all that kind of mystical, spiritual, kind of like weird stuff, It was just called Yoga to the People, actually, is where I started practicing and where I got my first training. And I just felt my body in a different way. And I just love what was going on. I started to find my breathing, which has changed everything for me in a lot of ways. I mean, same with meditation, but like, wow, breathing is such a powerful resource and go-to and instrument that can really help you change your mood, your manners, your actions, anyway. Yoga came, and then I just felt like I wanted to train. So I did my first training in 2009 with yoga, and I started teaching shortly after that. And it was like, I just loved it. I really loved, seeing the smile on people's faces after like they practiced, and like knowing that I kind of had something to do with that. And I kept teaching and I kept training. And then this whole world opened up to me. It just kind of welcomed me, not knowing what kind of teacher I was. And then I find out as I kind of leave this one studio where I started, and then went to other studios, that it was like I actually was quite a good teacher, and I was like, wow. And then right at around that same time, like this was 2008, 2009. My acting was, I had an agent at that time. I was doing commercials. I was getting, going on second auditions for like Law and Order. I'm like, yeah, this is happening. And then the economic bust hit 2008, 2009. The whole industry changed, where like, all like the people that are getting the film work and the bigger television roles, all that money went away, and they just kind of trickled down and pushed me out the door. So I slugged it out for about a year and a half. And in 2011, made a clear break. I'm done. I'm done. It wasn't like I regretted it was just like, you know what? Because I started moving in, I was already teaching significantly, as a yoga teacher. And I started going in that direction. And I was lucky in some ways, because in the yoga world, it's a lot of female teachers, and a lot of gay teachers, and I mean they're all really good teachers. But to have like a straight man, that has a presence in a room was like, I'm like one amongst 1,000 teachers, or maybe 300 or 200. So I was able to really make it work, teaching at different studios. I have private students that I still work with on a regular basis. I started doing yoga retreats, which were a blast, like, since 2014, all around, several different places in the world and in the States. Yeah, that was, and then it's kind of led me, then, my dream has really been to, ever since, I remember a friend says to me, since 2011 or 12, he was like, I just love that you always wanted to start working with corporations. And I started really hitting it in 2017, working with different companies, and and that's growing as well. So yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
awesome.
So corporations, like, what are you doing with corporations? Give me an example or an idea. Are you teaching yoga, or what are you
Yeah,
doing?
I mean, like I yoga can be really intimidating for people. Just the word yoga, right? I mean, I stepped into, I'm sure your listeners, and BNI, Business Networking International, those groups, it's like kind of synapse kind of thing, right? Like I would go in and talk about yoga, and this was 2012 or 13, before yoga really got big in the city and around the States. And I would try to talk about it. People didn't have a clue what it was. Like, they did, but it was just like their whole, and I'm still trying to demystify this a lot of ways, because I still hear it so often, is, I can't do yoga because I can't touch my toes, is what people say over and over and over again. And it's not, how else are you going to touch your toes if you don't do some yoga, is what I like to say. So I actually went into companies under the umbrella of mindfulness and meditation, because that was kind of a big buzzword in the corporate world. I knew like I knew like a lot of my advertising was kind of already done for me when I started seeing meditation ads on the subways in New York about 3 or 4 years ago. Headspace started to advertise. I'm like, boom, like if there's enough money, or if there's enough people that are interested to pay enough money on a meditation app, I'm like, oh, good. Like it's out there in our conversation, and one thing I like about New York too, it's very cutting edge. Like everything kind of arrives here first and kind of happens here, and then kind of filters out across the country, maybe in the rest of the world, even in some ways. So the corporations were kind of already privy to meditation and mindfulness. And since I've been teaching for so many years, all these different students, like, thousands of students a month, in New York. I mean, not always the same, a lot of the same students, but just like, they would bring me into their company, and they'd be like, so I started developing, shift to flow mindfulness, at shifttoflow.com. And I have like pitch decks, and I just started pitching into these companies, and I go in and I start really basic. I just teach them how to breathe. I get them in their body a little bit, like I kind of jump around, and we'll open up our bodies. And I have like specific yoga stretches that we can do in the office. We don't need yoga mats. Like I really wanted to make it very, novice or newbie friendly, and like really, I mean, and not and make it very basic, make it very layman. Like meet them. One thing, one of my teachers, one of my first yoga teachers said, he goes, "What I love about yoga is it meets you where you're at." So me not trying to push people into or raise them up. So just meet them where they are, and starting very basic with breathing, finding their body, meditating, also, but trying to plug in. It's like use this breathing technique when you need to relax. Use this breathing technique when you're getting psyched for a meeting. Use this breathing technique when somebody is agitating you, and just kind of. And then giving them tools, so not just being like, here's a bunch of stuff. It's like, here's where you can apply it. And, and I also, instead of just me teaching in front of them, I have I have slides and decks of information that I like to give to them, present to them. So they're visually engaged. I've emails and stuff that I follow up with. And so it's been awesome. Like some of the companies now I work with, one on Monday morning, it's like 20 minutes. Drop in on Zoom. We do a 20-minute movement, breath, and meditation session in, out, and they love it. So
that's awesome. How have you found breathing and meditation and mindfulness impacting yours and others' emotional health and emotional intelligence?
Okay, so So how has, I'm sorry, say that again. So how has EQ helped me in my relationships? And I'm sorry.
So how has, I mean, and I can 100% see the connection, but hear how you kind of answer this is how have you seen breathing and meditation and mindfulness impact your own EQ, your own self-awareness, and others, all the teaching you've done and the thousands of people and stuff. I'm sure, man, by now you've gotten tons of feedback on, man, this has been game changing. This has helped in this area, that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it all works in a wonderful system. Like, if I can find my breath, I can find my body, I can get to know my feelings and know my thoughts. And the practice of meditation really helps me. It opens me up to myself, right? And it's taken a long time for me to be more forgiving and be more kind to myself, because I can, I grew up, with the go, drive, keep going, do this, do that, and it's like, and always. Instead of seeing my failures as, just an opportunity for growth in some ways, right? That's like emotional intelligence, allowing my, failures to kind of defeat me and beat myself up. So it's really the breathing is so vital, because what it does to us biologically. Well, what I like to say about the breathing and meditation, it taps us into our biological brilliance. And that our biological brilliance, and that brilliance is lit up, and I mean brilliance in the sense of not just our mind, but we literally energetically begin to enhance our experience. So we calm our nervous system down enough that we're not kind of stuck in the rat race of our thoughts, or we're not continually being spiraled with our emotions, and the emotions and the thoughts create drama, or just keep going. And like I said earlier, the mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. So I could be fucking mad at somebody, right, because of this storm of emotions and thoughts and physical response in some ways that doesn't even exist. It doesn't even exist. So I in the process of knowing myself emotionally more, I get to know other people, and I can just see how they're, especially with all the teaching I've done and all the people I see in the city, how people hold their body. I can see get a good idea of how they're feeling. The first words out of somebody's mouth are a great tell as far as like where they are. And then, but not, it, but not, but understand, like seeing that, experiencing that, and then, just coming from a place of like, how can I help them? What is their need? And sometimes that means not doing anything, just kind of walking away and let them be. So like all those practices, what I like about what Dale Carnegie says, he says, remember that when you're dealing with people, this is Dale Carnegie, Win Friends and Influence People. Remember that when you're dealing with people, you are not dealing with a rational being. You're dealing with an emotional being. And that's who we are at our essence. I mean, I like to think of the word human being, right? We have our human side, we have our physical body, we have our, the breath is part of that, right? But the being part is this biological brilliance that when we're in that place, by intentionally practicing, and with enough practice, enough years, and enough time, like you might kind of be able to access that brilliance much more readily, or at least know when you're not in your brilliance and what to do to get back there. But that's, I'm sorry, I lost my thought a little bit, but that's what all this, what EQ has really helped me do.
Yeah, sure. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. A lot of what you shared there reminds me one of my first jujitsu coaches taught me or recommended a book called The Rise of Superman to me, with figuring out optimal human performance, which, as Stephen Kotler, he's the author of that.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
Talks about,
I love that book.
Right. Yeah. And your whole shift to flow, and, the people, they did a study, and executives that were able to get into their flow state more effectively and on almost on command, they were like 5 times more effective. They would get done in one day what it took all the other executives the rest of the week to do, until Monday through Friday. And so, and I think even if we're not, if some of the folks in the audience may be familiar with the flow state, some may not be familiar with flow state, but the reality is that I'm sure all of us can relate with a place where we are, where it almost feels like we're unstoppable. We're the most alive, and we're present, and we're emotionally available for ourselves, and for for our loved ones, and for our either coworkers or customers or clients or whoever we're working with, and being able to have more control over that state, and not just like, well, man, I hope I can get in flow today, or man, I was in flow. I remember that one time I was in flow 5 years ago. But to be, you know what I mean? But to be able to get in that state whenever you want to, I mean, who doesn't want to perform optimally, whatever that means for each person, as often as possible, right? And so it sounds like the stuff that you're doing, man, is very powerful, and really helping people connect with that flow state, and because I feel like and again, we kind of are hitting the Rubik's cube of the human being from different angles, but I feel like the end state is still ultimately that optimal human performance, and the reality is, and I love what you said. I think you said something like we are all. We have, there's many, in fact, in the Bible, it says that in 1 Corinthians 12, it talks about we are one body, but many parts. And they're talking, in that particular reference is talking about, the body of Christ and the church and all these, all these people, but also that we are made up of many different systems, right? Many different parts individually that all need to work together optimally. Right. So, if I want to be the best jujitsu guy or business guy, but I'm not taking care of my body, I'm fooling myself to think that my health is not affecting my business. right? Or like
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
breathing and all these different things. So anyway, man, I love that,
No.
Will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, you're talking like, it's really, you want to be in harmony, like, and we have, talk about the different elements of being a human being. Like we have many different instruments, and it's like, it's not, we're not just our mind. I mean, I think what happens, why we get disconnected and we get disconnected so early from our feelings is because we're rewarded so much for our intellect, at schools, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, I mean, think about, even now it's like when I have, my friends that are having kids, or, I know you've heard this, like, oh, they're so smart. My kid's a genius, right? You know what I mean? So it's just like, boom. And then all of our grades, you get an A, did you get 100? How did you do in your test? What are your grades, right? And what are a lot of these, a lot of these, it's academic pursuit. It's mostly in your head. So like, what do we, and then we just sacrifice everything else from the neck down, and coming back to that biological brilliance, it's like, that's why it's just as important to meditation is huge. It's great. Breathing is huge, but that's only going to take you so far if you don't get in your body, even if it just means going out for a walk 30 minutes a day or an hour or 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night. And that's been shown scientifically to have incredible effects on your biology and your mind and all of your biology. So just really being like in a complete human being. And then finding, I think where a lot of people struggle is like not knowing, understanding the value of that, and how that works together, but getting so busy all the time that they're like, I don't have time. I don't have time, and it's like, and I come back when people tell me this, like, make the time. Like, it's like it's as important as any meeting out of any, anything you can do for yourself for that day. Make the time, find that time on your calendar and put it in there. And it doesn't move, just like your president, you're meeting with the president of the company, does not move.
Yeah.
So, and even, and that might even just start one day a week is my mental health day, one day a week. And that could just be 10 minutes is my mental health in this one day. And that stays in your calendar. And just by having it on your calendar, knowing it's there, and then just practicing, it's amazing where it will start to lead you. I mean, all of these, the yoga I've done through all these years, like it started at like subconsciously changed my diet, stopped eating so much meat, stopped eating shit food. I really don't even drink that. I mean, I'll have beer here and there, but I don't need any alcohol in my place, because it's just so toxic for my body. I just don't feel on point,
Yeah.
So, and these practices have a natural way of wanting to create more health in your mind, your body, and that emotional aspect of it. You just, that it create, I'm more calm and I'm more vulnerable. And Brene Brown talks about the power of vulnerability. I mean, it's like, and that was kind of old, like 2006 or something like that. But it's not, it's just, vulnerability is not weakness. It is courage and power. And it's like, and it's your superpower. If you can just really get raw, look someone in the eye, say, I'm sorry, or, or I forgive you, or whatever that conversation needs to be had. Like, that's when you're going to just take leaps and bounds into greater emotional intelligence, greater EQ, emotional intelligence, because you're not going to be so scared anymore. I mean, the world is out here in the physical plane. It's not all in our head. And we get very lost in our mind. And the meditation it's like, it lets me know that I'm not this, my thoughts or my feelings, it lets me know that I have a body. So it lets me know there's other people out there that are having an experience. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Will, wrapping up here, last question.
Yeah.
What is especially from your experience as an instructor and teaching so many people, in this space, what is some newbie advice for folks that are like, okay, I haven't really been intentional in my emotional growth or healing or that kind of thing, whether it's breathing or meditation or journaling, any of those things. What would be some final encouragement or advice for folks that are wanting to start their journey in this space?
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would say start with one thing. Start whenever, and that could be whatever it is. Like meditation can be very intimidating for a lot of people, like very intimidating. And yeah, I mean, it's just like, and there's so much, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Misconceptions about meditation and stuff. So maybe meditation isn't your thing, or maybe you've tried and it just didn't work, or maybe just don't jive with the right teacher. You know, um, or so it could be something else. It could be like I talked about, taking a walk, um, but start somewhere and just start small. I really like to encourage people to go baby steps. Like people get like New Year's resolutions. Everyone's like, "Oh, I'm gonna start like running 5 miles a day," and they haven't left the couch in 3 years. Like that's probably not gonna happen, you know. So, but maybe go out if like, and this is just a metaphor for all of it. It's just like, instead of trying to run 5 miles 5 days a week, what if you start walking 30 minutes, for 3 days a week in the morning, and then slowly second week, maybe jog, third, fourth week, you do this. So really starting small, I think is very important, but also making the time and showing up, especially when you don't want to. That's when you're going to get your biggest, that's when you're going to find your greatest confidence. That's when you're going to usually sometimes make your biggest like epiphanies or strides in your emotional development, or just your own development, because we're emotional beings. It's all in your development. And so I think like, and if anything, we all can breathe. If you can just sit and take 10 or 20 big breaths, like really, really big breaths, like every day, like, and just, that'll take like maybe a minute and a half, like, and just sit with that breath and be with your breath. Like you'll start to know that, you'll start to know that you don't have to live with so much stress, so much anxiety, so much nonstop thought that gets in the way of who you are. And all these practices are going to take you and keep you digging deeper into that, that human being, all of you. And it's going to, and as you connect more deeply here, you're going to just have a greater impact out there with other people. And and I think if it's really hard for people to do any of those things, it's like, start getting uncomfortable. Get uncomfortable, whatever that is, in a relationship, physically, challenge yourself mentally, challenge yourself in any way. Get uncomfortable, because you're going to start to see who you are and what you can do. And again, once you start turning on the light, that light's going to start looking for, more dark areas that you can, start to pursue more of your greatness and brilliance.
Love that, Will. How do we follow you? How do we find you? What's your website? All that stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So I'm all over Instagram at like, everything is Will Not Fear, right? So I have at Will Not Fear. If you want to take one of my classes, I offer virtual yoga classes, meditation class. I have a wake up series that Monday through Friday. That's all at willnotfear.com. And I'm on, and that's also a lot of my mindfulness programs too. For the corporate, you can kind of switch over to there, but shifttoflow.com is also more of my corporate offerings. But anything at Will Not Fear, all social, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, is definitely a way to stay in touch. And I really, it's my mission to help like more and more people, like 1 million people. And I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of share this information. And anybody has any question or would like to know anything of what I'm doing, by all means, hit me up, and I'll do the best I can to get back to you and see what we can make happen.
Awesome, Will. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
I totally appreciate it, brother. I totally appreciate your wisdom and your insights, man, and for sharing from your heart. And totally excited. I know there's going to be a lot of people get a lot of value from this. Yeah,
I really, thank you so much. And I really appreciate bringing me on. And let me know I can help you, Gibson, with what you're doing, where you are. Even a little bit of breathing now and then, 15 minutes once a week might be a big difference. So let me know I can help you. But that goes for anybody out there. So again, thank you, and thank you for bringing the awareness of EQ to the world, because if we have a more emotionally sound collective, like the world can really shift. So
Yes,
yeah,
bro.
thank
Yes. One thing I love saying is hurting people hurt people and are easily
you.
hurt by people. And conversely, emotionally healthy people help heal people emotionally.
Bang. Yeah.
Right. And so,
Yeah.
and then one we just did a training to a group of folks this morning on Zoom. And one of the things I said was, when you help heal the individual emotionally, the whole organization gets healthier emotionally.
Exactly.
And who does not want a healthier, organization, right? Well, if we
Yeah.
have all these hurting, broken people that are walking around with all our injuries and bleeding from this that space, we wonder why there's so many issues and challenges, and HR has got all these different lawsuits. And man, if we
Yeah.
help each other grow emotionally and heal emotionally and hold each other's space and all that stuff,
Yeah.
man, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, organizations would be at a different place, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So thank you, Big Will, man. I totally appreciate
Yeah.
you, brother.
Same here. And thank you again. And yeah, and hopefully we'll get to maybe work together in the future. That'd be amazing. Cool. Thank you, Gibson. Have a great evening. And again, I really appreciate your time and this opportunity.